Have you ever looked back and asked yourself, why did I keep giving to someone who only took? Why was I kind to someone who treated me like I was disposable? We've all been there. We've all shown up with a full heart, offered our time, our loyalty, our kindness, only to be met with betrayal, silence, or worse, disrespect. And here's the painful truth. Being good to the wrong people doesn't make them better. It just makes you exhausted. It chips away at your spirit until you start questioning your own worth. But what if I told you this isn't your weakness? What if I told you this is your power? Because you see, Stoic philosophy teaches us something that the modern world often forgets. Your kindness is a gift, not an obligation. And when it's abused, you have every right to take it back. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That's not just philosophy. That's survival wisdom, emotional clarity, a roadmap to inner strength. And yet, in today's world, we often equate kindness with weakness. We're told to forgive and forget, to keep being the bigger person, even when our generosity is being weaponized against us, even when people take our silence as permission, our empathy as weakness. But Stoicism challenges that narrative. It reminds us that we are not doormats. We are not here to endlessly tolerate mistreatment in the name of being nice. Because there's a difference between being good and being naive. There's a line between compassion and self-betrayal. When someone continuously crosses that line, when they take your loyalty and use it for leverage, when they mistake your peace for passivity, Stoicism says, withdraw, not with hate, not with bitterness, but with power. Quiet, calm, unshakable power. That's what we're going to explore in today's video. We're going to talk about what happens when good people stop explaining themselves. When they stop trying to fix what someone else keeps breaking. When they stop sacrificing their peace to keep someone else comfortable. Because here's the twist. They never see coming. When you finally walk away, it's not you who ends up with regret. It's them. You don't need revenge. You don't need to make them see. The most devastating punishment for someone who mistreats a good soul is realizing that soul is never coming back. Your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Your silence becomes the echo of every chance they wasted. And your detachment, that becomes their mirror, the one that shows them who they really are without your light to hide behind. So if you're watching this right now, and you're feeling the sting of betrayal, if your kindness has been thrown back in your face, if you've ever wondered, was it even worth it? Stay with me, because we're going to shift the narrative. This isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. It's about learning how to let go, not from anger, but from wisdom. It's about understanding that your peace is too valuable to waste on people who thrive on chaos. And most importantly, it's about turning your pain into purpose, your silence into strength, and your story into sovereignty. Because that's what the Stoics believed. Not that life would be fair, but that we could always choose how to respond. And when you've been mistreated, the most powerful response isn't retaliation, it's elevation. It's rising without rage, healing without closure, and thriving without needing their apology. So in this video, we'll explore exactly how to do that. We'll look at the mindset shifts you need to protect your energy, the behaviors to stop tolerating, and the internal armor you can build, so that the next time someone tries to take advantage of your kindness, they won't get the same version of you. Because that version, the one who kept giving, kept trusting, kept hoping, they didn't destroy that version of you. They forged a stronger one. You didn't lose yourself. You just learned. And now you get to move forward with clarity, with calm, and with the quiet satisfaction of knowing they will live with the regret. And you will live with peace. Let's begin. Part 1. Recognizing the wrong people. Let's be honest. Sometimes, the people who drain us the most are the ones we tried the hardest to help. You give. They take. You show up. They disappear. You forgive. And they repeat. Have you ever found yourself wondering, why do I always end up hurt, even when my intentions are good? Here's a tough truth we don't like to face. Not everyone you're kind to is worthy of that kindness. And that's not bitterness speaking, that's clarity. See, one of the foundational beliefs in Stoic philosophy is this: you are responsible for your own actions, not how others treat your generosity. Your kindness is yours to give, but it's also yours to protect. Now, how do you recognize the wrong people before they leave you empty? Let's start with the warning signs. And they're often more obvious than we want to admit. 1. They always take, but rarely give. You're the one checking in. You're the one offering help, advice, a ride, money, time. You become their emergency contact, their therapist, their unpaid support system. But when the tables turn, silence, excuses, distance. 2. They manipulate through guilt or obligation. They make you feel bad for setting boundaries. They twist your no into a betrayal. Somehow, everything becomes your fault. Their chaos becomes your responsibility. 3. They lack basic respect. They ignore your time, dismiss your values, and cross your boundaries like they were never there. You feel like you're constantly justifying your worth, proving you're good enough to keep around. Sound familiar? If you've experienced this, you're not alone. I remember a time when I poured myself into a friendship that felt one-sided from the beginning. I ignored the signs. I kept showing up, believing that loyalty would eventually be reciprocated. I answered every call, even at 2 a.m. I lent money I couldn't afford to lose. I canceled plans for their emergencies. And when I finally needed them, they were gone. No explanation, no apology, just gone. And for a while I blamed myself. But with time, and with the help of Stoic thinking, I realized something powerful. It wasn't my fault for being kind. It was my mistake for staying blind. That moment taught me one of life's hardest lessons. You can be a good person with a kind heart and still say, I'm done. Because kindness without boundaries turns into self-neglect. And as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. That includes being good to yourself, especially when others refuse to meet you halfway. Let me be clear. Recognizing the wrong people isn't about judging or resenting them. It's about honoring your energy. It's about understanding that you are not obligated to shrink yourself for people who refuse to grow. You are not here to be a life raft for those who keep jumping into storms of their own making. You are not required to destroy your peace just to maintain someone else's comfort. That's not kindness. That's self-destruction, disguised as virtue. Now here's the shift, the Stoic shift. The moment you recognize someone is taking more than they give, you pause, not with anger, but with awareness. Because Stoicism isn't about becoming cold or detached, it's about being discerning. It's about living with intention. So when someone repeatedly drains your energy, you stop asking, why are they doing this to me? And you start asking, why am I allowing it? Because here's the truth. Good people don't just become bitter overnight. They become bitter from prolonged betrayal, from constantly overextending for people who never even bring a cup to the table, let alone fill yours. So what can you do? Start by listening to your gut. That inner whisper that says, this doesn't feel right. This isn't mutual. This is costing me my peace. Then ask yourself, do I feel safe being myself around this person? Do I feel seen, heard, and valued? Or do I feel like I'm being used, managed, or tolerated? If the answer makes your stomach tighten or your chest feel heavy, you already know. You know it's time to draw the line, not in cruelty, but in clarity. Not to punish them, but to protect you. And don't worry, this doesn't make you heartless. This makes you wise. Because the longer you allow the wrong people in your life, the longer it takes for the right ones to arrive. It's like leaving your door wide open for a storm, while someone who genuinely cares is waiting outside, patiently hoping for shelter. By letting go of the wrong ones, you make space for peace, for truth, for alignment. You make space for people who match your energy, people who pour into you without being asked, people who see your kindness not as a tool, but as a treasure. And most importantly, you make space for yourself. You stop bleeding emotionally for people who wouldn't offer you a bandage. You stop chasing closure from those who were never open in the first place. And you finally reclaim your time, your focus, your strength. That's the first step. Recognize the wrong people. Withdraw your energy without guilt. And walk forward, not in rage, but in self-respect, because not everyone deserves access to your light. Some people were only drawn to you because you made their darkness feel comfortable. But you're not here to dim. You're here to rise. Part 2. Why they don't appreciate you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever done so much for someone that they just started expecting it? You showed up every time. You were patient when they were reckless. You supported them through storms they created. And slowly, without even realizing it, they stopped seeing your effort as a gift and started treating it as a given. That's the tragedy of consistency. See, people don't always appreciate what they didn't work for, what they didn't earn, what they didn't bleed for. It's easy to become invisible to someone you constantly rescue. And that's the painful irony. When your love is steady, when your presence is dependable, when your kindness flows without condition, some people don't feel grateful. They feel entitled. It's like pouring water into a cup with no bottom. No matter how much you give, it's never enough. Not because your effort lacks value, but because they stopped valuing it. Let me give you an example you may have lived through, or maybe you're living it now. Imagine you're in a relationship, and at first, everything feels right. You invest, you listen, you support. You carry more than your share of the emotional weight because you believe in the relationship. You remember their appointments when they forget. You pick up the slack after their bad days. You forgive things they barely acknowledge. You show up again and again and again. But instead of appreciation, you get complacency. They stop thanking you. They stop noticing your effort. They stop caring when you're tired or hurting or silently screaming for support. And then one day, you stop showing up. You pull back. You grow silent. You choose yourself. And suddenly, they panic. Suddenly, they notice the things they once ignored. But here's the kicker. They don't miss you. Not really. They miss the version of you who sacrificed your own peace to keep them comfortable. They don't miss the relationship. They miss the convenience. And that's when it hits you. It wasn't love. It was entitlement. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "When someone is properly grounded in life, they shouldn't have to look outside themselves for approval." But many people do. They seek validation, comfort, healing from you. And when you deliver over and over again, without fail, they begin to believe your presence is permanent. Your patience is infinite. Your forgiveness has no end. And that's when appreciation dies. Because appreciation requires awareness. It requires effort. It requires someone to stop and think, "This person didn't have to be there for me, but they chose to." But entitled people, they never stop to think that way, because in their mind, you owe them your goodness. And that's where your power must return. You see, when someone grows used to you being the strong one, they forget that you have needs too. They forget that you get tired, that you feel unappreciated, that you're not some emotional machine that keeps giving without breaking down. And here's the truth, most people learn too late. The person who keeps showing up is also the one who knows exactly when to leave. That moment, the day you choose peace over pleasing, is the day the dynamic changes. Suddenly, they're shocked. They're confused. They ask, "What happened?" But the truth is, nothing happened overnight. They just weren't paying attention. They missed every quiet moment when you questioned your worth. They ignored every subtle sigh when your needs were pushed aside. They overlooked every hint of fatigue in your smile. And now they're forced to face a reality without you. And that's where regret begins. But not for you, for them, because you finally saw the truth. Kindness without recognition is exploitation. Loyalty without reciprocity is self-sacrifice. Love without respect is just obligation dressed as devotion. And you're done with that. That's what Stoicism teaches us. To be firm, not cruel. To walk away, not to punish, but to preserve our dignity. To understand that it is not noble to stay where you are diminished. It is not noble to be endlessly understanding when the other person refuses to understand you. Your peace matters. And sometimes the most powerful move you can make is silence. The most unshakable strength, distance, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to you, especially not those who treat your energy like it's disposable. So if you're watching this and you feel unappreciated, if your effort has become invisible, if your consistency has been mistaken for obligation, let this be your reminder. You were never too much. You were just too generous with someone who didn't recognize your value. And the good news, you can take it back. Right now. Your kindness, your energy, your time. Redirect it toward people who see it, feel it, and honor it. Or better yet, invest it in yourself. Because you don't need to be needed to be worthy. You don't have to exhaust yourself to prove your love. You are enough, even when you stop giving. And the moment they realize what they lost, that's not your responsibility. That's their lesson. Let them learn it. Let them live with it. You walk forward with peace, with pride, and with the quiet power of someone who finally chose themselves. Part 3. Walking away without warning. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is leave quietly. No final argument, no dramatic exit, no lengthy explanation, just silence. See, people expect noise when they've wronged you. They prepare themselves for confrontation, for shouting, for you to demand closure, scream your worth, or beg for basic decency. But when you simply walk away, without warning, without a word. That silence becomes deafening. And that's what they didn't expect. Because silence doesn't just end the conversation, it becomes the conversation. Let me tell you why this matters. When you argue, when you chase, when you try to make someone understand how they've hurt you, you give them something to fight against. They can blame your tone. They can deflect. They can gaslight, twist the narrative, delay accountability. But when you leave without noise, they're left alone with the only voice they can't silence, their own conscience. That's when the real confrontation begins, not with you, but with themselves. Now let me be clear. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you're weak. In fact, it's the complete opposite. It means you've realized this situation, this person, is not worth another ounce of your energy. It means you've chosen to protect your peace over proving your point. It means you've stopped explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This is where Stoic wisdom shines brightest. The Stoics believe that energy is sacred, that your time, attention, and emotions are things you must guard with discipline. They taught that the wise don't react to every insult or injury, not because they're passive, but because they are free. Free from needing validation, free from emotional chaos, free from trying to fix what someone else keeps breaking. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You don't need to slam the door to make a point. You don't need to explain your worth to someone who treated you like you were disposable. You just need to leave. And when you do it in silence, it sends a message they'll hear long after you're gone. Let's look at an example. Imagine a friendship that's been draining you for months. You've been patient. You've addressed the hurt. You've tried to talk things through again and again, but the same cycle keeps repeating. One day, you decide, enough. You stop responding to their messages. You stop showing up for their chaos. You stop making excuses for their behavior. You don't send a long goodbye. You don't post cryptic messages. You don't seek revenge. You just remove yourself, quietly, completely. And now, for the first time, they have no one to redirect blame toward, no one to argue with, no one to manipulate, no one to lean on without giving back. They're forced to sit with the consequences of their own actions. And that silence, that space, it speaks louder than words ever could. Here's the lesson. You don't owe closure to someone who gave you confusion. You don't owe kindness to someone who weaponized your empathy. And you certainly don't owe a dramatic exit to someone who didn't care enough to make you want to stay. There's power in unannounced peace. There's clarity in disappearing from what once disrespected your presence. And there's strength, real strength, in choosing yourself without needing to make it a performance. Now, this doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. This doesn't mean you pretend nothing happened. It means you acknowledge the pain, you learn the lesson, and you move forward with grace. You grieve in private, you heal in silence. You rise in stillness, because healing doesn't always need an audience. Sometimes your comeback is simply becoming someone they no longer have access to. That's the Stoic way. Not coldness, but clarity. Not revenge, but redirection. Not noise, but inner knowing. And here's the truth they don't tell you. Most people don't change when you cry, beg, or plead. They change when you're no longer available. They grow when they lose the one who gave them grace too many times. So let them sit in the silence. Let them wonder where you went. Let them feel the absence of your light. Because if they were blind to your presence, maybe the only thing left to teach them is your absence. And you don't look back. You don't explain. You don't chase. You protect your peace like a Stoic protects their virtue. With quiet strength and unshakable resolve. Remember this, you are not cold, you are not heartless, you are clear. And clarity is often mistaken for cruelty by those who benefited from your confusion. So walk away, not to punish them, but to save yourself, not in anger, but in wisdom. And when they finally realize what they lost, you'll be too far gone to hear their apology. And that, my friend, that is how the story ends. Quietly, powerfully, unforgettably. Part 4. Their realization and regret. In the beginning, they won't notice. They might even celebrate your absence. They'll convince themselves you were never that important, that losing you was no loss at all, that they're better off without you. You see, when you first walk away, especially when you do it silently, it's easy for them to dismiss you. They mock your boundaries. They downplay your role. They tell others you were too sensitive or overreacting. But time has a way of stripping away illusions. And eventually, the truth catches up. Because it's only a matter of time before the effects of your absence begin to show. They'll reach for help and realize no one answers like you did. They'll look for comfort and realize no one listens like you did. They'll face difficulty and realize no one shows up like you did. And that's when it hits them. You weren't just present. You were pivotal. Stoicism teaches that the world reveals itself not in noise, but in silence. And when your presence is gone, what remains isn't emptiness, it's a mirror. They begin to see, often too late, the role you played. Let me give you an example. There was a colleague I worked with for years. Every project, I was the one double-checking the details. I stayed late. I fixed the things they missed. I kept the team running, even when the credit didn't come my way. But they didn't respect it. In fact, they undermined it. Behind closed doors, they'd claim they carried the weight. In meetings, they minimized my input. They grew comfortable watching me hold the structure together and pretended it was all them. So I stopped. I did my job, nothing more. I didn't go the extra mile. I didn't cushion their mistakes. I let reality take over. And it didn't take long. Deadlines were missed. Clients grew frustrated. Leadership started asking questions. And suddenly, the colleague who once bragged about their independence was floundering. The support they mocked was gone. The stability they took for granted removed. The invisible work became very visible by its absence. And that's when regret began. But not for me. For them. Because now, they saw what I was worth. Not when I was there, but when I wasn't. And that's the lesson. Some people won't value your presence until it becomes your absence. They won't understand what you were doing behind the scenes, emotionally or practically, until the weight you were carrying falls on their shoulders. And the Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, would tell us this: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. You don't need to argue about your worth. You don't need to explain what you brought to the table. You simply remove yourself and let time speak the truth. Because regret is born in the gap between what they thought they deserved and what they now realize they lost. But here's the key. By the time they regret it, you're already gone. You've already healed. You've already rebuilt. You've already redirected your energy toward people and places that recognize your value before it has to go missing. And that's where the power lies. Not in making them suffer, not in watching them fall apart, but in knowing, quietly, that your exit was the turning point, not just for them, but for you. You stopped bleeding for someone who never even brought you a bandage. You stopped giving your best to people who only responded with silence or selfishness. You stopped staying in spaces where you had to earn love by losing yourself. And now they see it. They see the gap where your strength used to be. They see the silence where your laughter once filled the room. They see the cracks that formed when your support disappeared. But they don't get access anymore. Their realization doesn't equal your return, because what's broken by betrayal isn't always repaired by regret. That's the Stoic approach, not to gloat in their downfall, but to grow in your own. To rise, not as revenge, but as renewal. So if you're watching this and wondering if they'll ever realize what they lost, don't worry, they will. Maybe not today, maybe not loudly, but one day, in a quiet moment, they'll feel the absence of your presence. They'll miss the way you stayed, the way you gave, the way you carried things no one else could even see, and they'll wish they could go back. But you'll be too far ahead, and that's your peace. Let them learn through the echo of your silence. Let them grow in the shadow of your absence. And you keep moving forward, with strength, with dignity, and with the quiet power of someone who finally chose themselves. Part 5. The power of indifference. There's a moment in healing that often goes unnoticed. It's not when you finally cry it out. It's not when you send that last message. It's not even when you walk away. It's when you stop caring. Not out of bitterness, not out of anger, but because you're truly done. That right there is the power of indifference. We talk so much about revenge, about proving people wrong, about making them regret how they treated you. But the truth is, the most powerful form of closure is no longer needing one. You don't need revenge when you no longer need validation. You don't need arguments when peace has become more valuable than proving a point. And you definitely don't need to make noise when your silence says everything. This is where Stoicism steps in, not just as a philosophy, but as a way of living above the chaos. The Stoics taught that we must learn to be indifferent, not to life, not to love, but to the things outside our control. And few things are more outside your control than how someone chooses to treat you. You can show up, you can be loyal, you can give them every chance to grow with you. But if they choose to stay stagnant, to stay blind to your value, to stay lost in their own ego, then indifference becomes your freedom. Let me paint a picture for you. You were once in a relationship, or a friendship, or even a work partnership where you gave your all. You encouraged them. You shared your ideas. You believed in their potential, but they didn't appreciate it. In fact, they may have mocked it. You left, and they expected you to spiral, to fall apart, to obsess over them, to chase them, to watch from the sidelines, hoping for closure. But instead, you built a new routine. You poured your energy into your craft. You started thriving, not to prove a point, not to win, but because you finally stopped pouring into someone who only drained you. And now, look at the contrast. You're moving forward, you're at peace, you're progressing, and they're still where you left them, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They're still trying to provoke a reaction you no longer have, because when you're truly indifferent, you no longer seek justice through conflict. You create justice through elevation. This doesn't mean you don't remember what happened. It means you've grown beyond needing it to define you. Indifference is misunderstood by many. People often see it as coldness or emotional shutdown. But in Stoic thinking, indifference is clarity. It's the refusal to tie your well-being to another person's immaturity. It's the quiet confidence that your value isn't determined by their ability to see it. It's the strength to wish them well, while never looking back. Let me say something important. If you're still hurting, that's okay. Healing is not linear. But indifference doesn't always come with a loud declaration. Sometimes it just arrives quietly, like the moment you no longer check their social media, the moment you hear their name and feel nothing, the moment you think about them and feel peace instead of pain, the moment you realize you're free, and the best part, they notice. Not because you told them, not because you posted about it, but because your absence became undeniable, and your life kept rising without them. That's when they realize you didn't leave to punish them. You left to protect yourself. And your silence, that was the closure. Your growth, that was the message. Your peace, that was the revenge. As Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And too many people never begin to truly live, because they're stuck in cycles of needing to be understood by those who've already shown they never will. You've begun to live fully, calmly, powerfully. That is what indifference gives you. It frees you from the need to be seen by those who chose to look away. It frees you from the desire to hurt those who already hurt themselves by losing you. It frees you from the past without needing permission or an apology. So if you're still holding on to the hope that they'll regret it, let go. Let go not because they don't deserve it, but because you do. You deserve a life that doesn't revolve around teaching people lessons. You deserve a future that isn't chained to someone else's inability to love you right. You deserve peace that doesn't require punishment to feel whole. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to wait for any of that. You can begin today, with indifference, with calm, with power, not loud, not bitter, but beautifully, silently, untouchable. That's the final stage of healing. That's when you stop surviving the betrayal and start thriving beyond it. So live well, live with purpose, not pain. Because when you do, they'll feel it. But more importantly, you won't need them to. Part 6. Turning betrayal into growth. Betrayal can break you, or it can build you. It's painful. It's personal. And at first it feels like everything you gave, your time, your trust, your heart, was thrown away without a second thought. But here's the shift that changes everything. What if the betrayal wasn't the end, but the beginning? What if that moment of pain, of being pushed aside, left behind, disrespected? What if that moment was actually your starting point? Stoic philosophy teaches us that we don't control what happens to us. We only control how we respond. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle becomes the way." So when someone betrays you, when they break your trust, when they show you they were never who you thought they were, that's your moment. Not to collapse, not to spiral, but to rise. Not out of revenge, but out of renewal. You take the pain and you repurpose it. You use the hurt they gave you and turn it into fuel. Let me be real with you. When someone breaks you open, you have two choices. You can bleed, or you can bloom. And blooming starts with going inward. Ask yourself, what parts of me did I abandon to keep that connection alive? What dreams did I put on hold while supporting theirs? What have I been tolerating that I never deserved? Because now you've got space. Space they used to fill. Energy they used to drain. And you get to reclaim it. Turn the betrayal into self-focus, into self-mastery. You want a comeback that hits deep. Get in the best shape of your life, not to post online, but to honor the body that carried you through heartbreak. Build new skills, not because they doubted you, but because you forgot how much potential you actually have. Start saving, investing, creating a financial foundation, not to flaunt, but to never need to rely on anyone again, because that's what real growth looks like. Quiet, steady, personal. And that's the Stoic way. See, the Stoics didn't preach blind positivity. They didn't say, pretend it doesn't hurt. They said, use it, channel it, direct it. Let the pain point you to the truth. That truth might be this: you were settling, you were shrinking, you were sacrificing your peace to keep someone else comfortable. And now you're done doing that. Now every time you get up and move your body, you're proving to yourself that you're still alive, still in control. Every time you sit down and learn something new, you're reminding your brain that the future isn't behind you. It's in your hands. Every dollar you save, every goal you hit, every habit you build, it's all a brick, and you're building something unshakable: yourself. Let me tell you something that may sting a little. They didn't break you. They revealed you. They revealed the parts of you that were unfinished, the wounds you were hiding, the parts of your identity that were still tied to their approval. Now you get to work on those parts, not because you weren't enough, but because now you get to become even more. You become someone who doesn't chase closure, because you build it. You become someone who doesn't seek validation, because you create it. You become someone who can walk through fire and come out refined, not ruined. That's the transformation betrayal offers, if you let it. So let the pain move you, not into bitterness, but into boldness. Let it strip away the versions of yourself that tolerated less than you deserved. And let it build a new you, one grounded, focused, steady. Because in the end, the person who grows in silence is the one they never see coming. While they stay the same, caught in cycles of ego and drama, you evolve. While they play the same games, you level up. And one day, whether they see it or not, you'll look in the mirror and realize the worst thing they did became the best thing that happened to you, because it woke you up, and you became someone unstoppable, not in spite of the betrayal, but because of it. So take the pain, thank it, and use it to build a life so powerful, so peaceful, so free, that you look back not with resentment, but with gratitude. Gratitude that they left. Gratitude that it ended. Gratitude that you now stand stronger, clearer, and more in control than ever before. Because they were a chapter. But you're the whole story. Part 7. Their long-term punishment. You want to know what their real punishment is? It's not your anger. It's not your silence. It's not even your absence. Their real punishment is watching you thrive without them. Not just survive, but rise. Rise in your peace. Rise in your power. Rise in a life that no longer includes them. See, in the beginning, they may not care. They may even laugh. They may assume you'll come back or break down. But time reveals what ego hides. And one day, months or even years later, they'll scroll through their feed or hear your name in a conversation, and there it is. Your smile, your success, your light, undimmed. That's when it hits them. Not with a bang, but with a slow, sinking realization. They lost access to a version of you they never deserved. You didn't post to impress them. You didn't win to prove them wrong. But the fact that you're still standing, still growing, is a truth they can't unsee. And they'll carry that. Because while you've moved forward, they're left behind, watching from the sidelines. They don't get to celebrate your wins. They don't get to be part of your breakthroughs. They don't get to say, "I always believed in you," because they didn't. They doubted you, dismissed you, maybe even hoped you'd fall apart without them. But you didn't. You rose. And now, their punishment isn't something you gave them. It's something they gave themselves. The Stoics knew this truth well. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." They thought they knew your worth. They thought they could predict your future. They thought leaving you, disrespecting you, or underestimating you would have no consequence. But now they realize they weren't just wrong about you. They were wrong about themselves, about the role they played, about what they lost, and regret. Regret lingers far longer than anger ever could, because anger fades, but regret whispers. It whispers at night. It whispers in the quiet moments. It whispers when they're alone and they see someone who looks like you, or hear your laugh in a memory they wish they could relive. And no matter how much time passes, no matter how loudly they try to distract themselves, that whisper doesn't stop. Because it's not just that you moved on, it's that you flourished, you healed, you created a life of meaning, not in spite of the pain, but through it. They expected you to fall apart, but instead, you became unshakable. And now, your existence stands as a mirror they cannot escape. It shows them who they could have been, if only they'd valued what they had. It reflects the choices they made, the ones that pushed you away. And the most painful part, they can't go back. Not because you're bitter, but because you're better. Not just better off, better within. See, Stoicism isn't about revenge. It's not about rubbing success in anyone's face. It's about indifference. The calm, quiet confidence that comes from no longer needing someone who once made you feel small. Your job is not to punish them. Life will handle that. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to gloat. You just need to live. Live in truth. Live in strength. Live in such alignment that their absence no longer leaves a void. It opens a door. And the door leads to a version of you they'll never meet. The one who loved harder after being broken. The one who got wiser after being betrayed. The one who found purpose in the pain. That version of you doesn't seek revenge. Because success is the revenge. Not the kind that's loud or petty. The kind that's quiet, unshakable, eternal. So let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them carry the weight of their decisions while you carry the light of your rebirth. Because your life, your peace, your joy, your success is the chapter they'll never be able to rewrite themselves into. They had a role in your story, but they're not part of the ending. You are. And that, my friend, is the most poetic justice of all. Let's make one thing clear. Your kindness is not a weakness. It is not something to be handed out freely to anyone who smiles at you. It is not something to be drained by people who only take, manipulate, or dismiss it. Your kindness is a gift, a rare and powerful one. But if you keep giving it to those who abuse it, it stops being a gift and becomes self-betrayal. And that's the lesson. You can have a heart full of compassion and still say, "No more." You can be generous and still walk away. You can be loving and still protect yourself. Because the truth is, some people only realize what they had after you're gone. And that's exactly where they'll stay, in the past, burning in the regret of losing someone they'll never replace. They'll try to recreate what you gave them, with someone else, somewhere else. But it won't be the same, because your presence, your loyalty, your emotional depth, those were never common. You were not replaceable. You were a rare storm of strength and softness. And when they lost that, they didn't just lose a person. They lost a portal to a better version of themselves. But here's the beauty of it. That's not your problem anymore. Because your victory is peace, not pettiness, not revenge, not proving them wrong, just peace. Peace that can't be shaken by their absence. Peace that doesn't require an apology. Peace that says, I no longer need you to see me because I finally see myself. That's what Stoicism teaches us. It teaches us to control what we can, our responses, our choices, our energy, and release what we can't. It teaches us that not every battle is worth fighting, and the most important battle of all is the one within. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." So, protect your circle. Be intentional about who you allow near your heart. Not from fear, but from wisdom. Because not everyone deserves access to your light. And from this moment on, make a promise to yourself. You will stop chasing people who dim your spirit. You will stop explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding you. You will stop bleeding for those who would never even bring you a bandage. Instead, you will build, you will protect, you will rise. Not in bitterness, but in balance. Not in rage, but in reason. Not to be seen, but to be whole. So let them live with their choices. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let them scroll through your life from a distance, realizing they are now nothing more than a footnote in the story of your comeback. And you live. You live so well, so fully, so freely, that they can never touch your peace again. That is the Stoic legacy. That is your legacy. And that is your ultimate revenge. A life so good, it makes the past irrelevant. A soul so grounded, no storm can shake it. A peace so deep, it echoes louder than any goodbye ever could. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Now walk forward, with clarity, with power, and most of all, with self-respect, because you deserve nothing less. If this message spoke to something deep in you, if you're ready to stop explaining yourself and start honoring your worth, then don't walk this path alone. Subscribe now and become part of a community grounded in strength, stillness, and self-respect. Here, we don't chase revenge. We build resilience. We don't seek chaos. We cultivate clarity. And we don't look back. We rise forward. Join us on this Stoic journey. One choice, one boundary, one breakthrough at a time. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you never miss a reminder of the power that lives within you. And drop a comment below. Tell us how you're reclaiming your peace. Welcome to the quiet revolution.